right, so let's look at this first problem here, where we start with book income of $59,000. Let's just write that down. And let me get this actually in view here. So in this problem, we have $59,000 that we're starting with. We have capital gains of $5,000. Those capital gains are going to be income for both book and tax purposes. Because they're capital gains, there's no difference between the two. It would be taxable in this year, and it would be includable on the financial statements as income. So that's not actually going to be a book tax difference. So some of these items are book tax differences, and some of them they're just thrown them in there to see if you know what you're talking about. We also have a charitable contribution of $1,200. Now, if you recall, for charitable contributions, let me just write that down. So charity, we are limited to 10% of taxable income. Now, this is book income, so we've got to figure out what taxable income is. And hopefully there we go. Income before charitable deduction. And before any dividends received deduction. Okay, so we need to figure out if this charitable contribution that we made, we know it was deducted on the books, if that is an item that we are allowed to take 100% of that for tax purposes. So we've got to do a calculation of what 10% of our taxable income before the charity deduction, before any dividend received deduction is. So that $59,000, we're going to start with that to do this calculation. We don't have to do anything with the capital gains because it would be included in that $59,000, and it's not an adjustment for tax purposes. But we also have these meals expenses of $7,500. Now remember, I said that this would be a book tax difference because the meals are 50% deductible for tax purposes, but they're 100% expensed on the financial statements. So in order to do the calculation to figure out how much of that $1,200 charitable contribution, maybe we can take all of it. I suspect we can take all of it, but maybe we can't. We have to do the calculation to determine whether we can or not. So what we have to do is figure out then what is 10% of our taxable income before charity deduction and before dividends received deduction. So we're going to start with our book income. We are going to add back the $1,200 because we subtracted it as a charitable contribution. It was deductible. We have to add it back to our income because it would have been subtracted from this number. And then we also need to add back 50% of the meals expense, which comes to $37.50. So again, we are doing this calculation to determine what our taxable income is before charity deduction and before DRD, so that we can take 10% of it to see if we can take all of this charitable contribution. All right, so if we add these together, where are we here? 9 and 3. So $63.50, that is our taxable income before charity deduction, before DRD. Then we can multiply that by 10%. Gets us $63.95. Now, $63.95 is our limit for how much charitable contribution we can take. Well, we only took $1,200, so we're well below that limit. So the charity deduction doesn't even have to be an adjusting item in this particular example. So the only adjusting item that we have is the meals expense, because for the charitable contribution we'd be able to take $1,200 for book and we'd be able to take $1,200 for tax. For the capital gains, we would be including that on both the tax and the book, so that's not an adjustment. The only adjusting item here is the $37.50, half of the $7,500, so we're going to have to add that back. So remember, let me see if I can pull. Oh, maybe I erased it or I closed it out. So you'll just kind of visualize, try to visualize, or maybe pull up on your end the that M1 image that I had provided there in the in Canvas. So we'll add these two together. 792 62,750, and this is our tax income. So that's our answer for the very first one on this of this problem. I'm going to make another video here. We'll go through to the part B.